Welcome to InfinityCast. I'm your host, Elias Whitlock. Today, we're digging into a piece of American history that often gets overlooked. A story of rebellion, desperation, and a fight for basic human dignity. We're talking about the largest armed labor uprising in the nation's history. Joining me to unpack this incredible event is my co-host, John Halden.
Thanks for having me, Elias. It's a story that absolutely needs to be told. To understand the Battle of Blair Mountain, you have to understand the world of a West Virginia coal miner in the early 1920s. It was a life of near total subjugation.
Subjugation is the right word. These miners and their families lived in company towns where the coal company owned everything: the houses, the store, the church, even the roads. They were often paid in scrip, a private currency only usable at the company store, which kept them in a perpetual state of debt.
Exactly. And the work itself was brutal and incredibly dangerous. Safety regulations were virtually non-existent. Any attempt to organize, to form a union like the Mine Workers of America, was met with extreme violence. Coal operators hired private armies, most notoriously the Baldwin Felts Detective Agency, to act as violent union busters.
These tensions had been simmering for years, but they boiled over in 1920 with an event known as the Matewan Massacre, where the town's pro-union police chief, Sid Hatfield, got into a shootout with Baldwin Felts agents. Hatfield became a folk hero, but a year later, in August 1921, he was assassinated in broad daylight on the courthouse steps by those same agents.
And that was the final straw. For the miners, it wasn't just about a contract anymore. It was about justice. It was about ending the tyranny of the coal operators and their hired guns. So they decided to march. An army of 10, maybe 15,000 armed miners, many of them World War I veterans, began a 50-mile march to unionize the southern coal fields of Logan and Mingo counties.
Their path was blocked at Blair Mountain by a heavily fortified defensive line. It was manned by about 3,000 men, state police, local deputies, and a private army funded by the coal companies and led by the notoriously anti-union sheriff, Don Chafin.
And what followed was a full-scale battle that lasted for nearly a week. We're talking trench warfare, machine gun nests. Chafin even hired private planes to drop makeshift bombs on the miners' positions. It was a civil war in miniature, fought in the hills of Appalachia. The conflict only ended when President Warren G. Harding intervened, declaring martial law and sending in the U.S. Army. Faced with the prospect of fighting their own country's soldiers, the miners, being deeply patriotic, laid down their arms. They weren't fighting America, they were fighting the coal companies. In the immediate aftermath, it looked like a total defeat. Nearly 1,000 miners were indicted for everything from murder to treason. The union's power in the region was crushed for more than a decade. But in the long run, Blair Mountain exposed the brutal reality of the coal fields to the entire nation. It planted the seeds for the labor protections that would eventually come with the New Deal.
It's a powerful, complex legacy, a reminder that the 5-day workweek and basic workplace safety standards weren't given. They were fought for, sometimes with rifles in hand on mountains like Blair. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us on InfinityCast.